The night the aliens did not invade but secretly rewrote the fate of the human race. The city slept under a sky painted with stars, unaware that this night would be unlike any other. People went about their routines, some lost in their dreams, others in their worries. Traffic hummed softly in the distance, and the occasional bark of a dog punctuated the quiet. Everything seemed normal. High above, in the black silence of space, the alien fleet hovered. They had traveled across galaxies, beyond the edges of known time, to reach Earth. But unlike what humans expected, they did not come to attack. There would be no destruction, no fiery invasion, no alien armies marching through cities. Instead, they had a different plan, one that was invisible, quiet, and far more profound. Dr. Miriam Kahn, an astrophysicist at the International Space Observatory, adjusted her telescope. She had been tracking unusual signals for weeks, signals that defied logic, coming from beyond the solar system. Tonight, they were stronger, pulsing rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. She frowned. Something was trying to communicate, but not in any language she could understand. At the same time, in a small apartment in New York, 16-year-old Leo Martinez stared at his computer screen. He was an amateur programmer, tinkering with code for a simple game. But something strange happened. The screen flickered, and a message appeared, not in words, but in shapes, patterns that seemed almost alive. The shapes rearranged themselves on their own, forming a design that was both beautiful and terrifying. Leo felt a chill. "Is this a glitch?" he whispered. Meanwhile, across the globe, other unusual events were happening. Farmers reported that their crops seemed to grow faster overnight. Birds changed their migratory paths without explanation. Electrical signals in certain parts of the world flickered as if reacting to an unseen force. The world remained unaware that something monumental was unfolding. Back in orbit, the alien ship hovered silently. Inside, beings of light, neither fully solid nor fully energy, studied humanity. They could see every choice, every potential, every possible outcome. They had the power to nudge reality itself. And tonight, without firing a single weapon, they would do so. Their leader, a being named Iltha, spoke without sound, communicating through thought. Humanity is at a crossroads, Iltha projected into the minds of its companions. They cannot survive the next century without change. But change must come subtly. We will rewrite their path, gently, so they do not notice until it is too late, or too wonderful. Below, in the streets of Paris, a painter named Claudine worked on a mural. Her brush hovered over the canvas, as if guided by an invisible hand. The colors she chose, the strokes she made, were influenced by a pattern no human could see, a pattern originating from the minds of the silent visitors above. By morning, the mural would inspire millions, its message subliminal, yet undeniable. In a quiet laboratory in Tokyo, a young scientist named Kenji adjusted the settings on an experiment meant to create clean energy. For weeks, his prototypes had failed. But tonight, something extraordinary occurred. The device hummed, stabilized, and produced more energy than it ever had before. Kenji could not explain it. He did not know that across the universe, the aliens had subtly altered the fundamental constants of his experiment, rewriting probabilities in humanity's favor. As midnight approached, the world remained oblivious. People slept, laughed, cried, and dreamed, unaware that their reality was being rewritten, not through force, but through infinite patience, precision, and understanding. The aliens did not invade because there was nothing to conquer. Their goal was higher, subtler. They were sculptors of destiny, shaping the human race like a potter shapes clay, without the clay knowing it had been molded. In the quiet town of Reykjavik, Iceland, a fisherman named Einar woke to an odd sensation. The northern lights shimmered unusually bright, painting the sky in colors he had never seen before. He felt compelled to take his small boat out to sea. As he rowed through the calm, icy waters, a strange calm settled over him, a sense of clarity he could not explain. By the time he returned to shore, his mind was filled with innovative ideas for sustainable fishing methods that could save his struggling community. Little did he know, the aliens had nudged the frequencies of thought in his brain, altering probabilities to favor solutions humanity desperately needed. Halfway across the globe, in a small village in Kenya, a teacher named Amina noticed something remarkable. Her students, who often struggled to focus, were suddenly more attentive, curious, and inventive. Ideas flowed freely from them, as if a hidden force had unlocked a door in their minds. Amina smiled, Unaware that she was witnessing the first wave of a quiet awakening the aliens had initiated, a subtle shift in human intelligence and creativity designed to help societies thrive without realizing why. Back in the United States, Leo Martinez could hardly sleep. The strange patterns on his screen had returned, not as images, but as sequences of numbers. When he decoded them, they revealed algorithms that could revolutionize computer science, algorithms no human could have invented alone. He wrote everything down in a notebook, feeling as though a guiding hand had led him. Somewhere far above, Iltha observed him with interest. The boy would one day be a key player in humanity's technological leap, but tonight, it was only a seed. In London, a retired musician named Grace awoke with an urgent need to play the piano. The music that flowed from her fingers was hauntingly new, unlike anything she had ever created. Notes aligned into patterns that resonated deep within the hearts of anyone who heard them. Across the world, other artists experienced the same sudden inspiration. Paintings, songs, stories, they all carried a subtle message, a rhythm of possibility the aliens were embedding in human culture. It was not manipulation in the sense of control, but guidance, shaping creativity to prepare humanity for challenges yet unseen. Meanwhile, global systems responded to invisible shifts. Scientists at CERN noticed minor anomalies in particle experiments, anomalies that hinted at new physics. Environmentalists found ecosystems recovering faster than expected, with species rebalancing in ways that defied conventional science. Economists began to see patterns in markets that suggested stability was possible without artificial intervention. Every change was small, almost imperceptible, yet cumulatively it nudged the human race toward a better path. As dawn approached, the aliens continued their silent work. They moved from mind to mind, field to field, lab to lab, adjusting the threads of human destiny without leaving a trace. Their technology did not invade, it resonated, like a quiet ripple across the pond of reality. Iltha addressed its companions in thought once more. Observe, but do not interfere overtly. Let them believe these changes are their own. We do not own their progress, we merely illuminate the paths they cannot yet see. And so, humanity slept, unaware that their fate had already begun to change. Seeds of innovation, creativity, and insight were planted across the globe, invisible yet potent. By the time people awoke to face the challenges of the next decades, the world would be subtly, irrevocably transformed. In a small observatory atop a hill in Chile, Dr. Miriam Kahn noticed one final anomaly before sunrise. A pulse of light from the distant stars seemed to wink, as if acknowledging her presence. She did not know it, but the pulse carried instructions for a method to harness cosmic energy in a way that could end humanity's energy crises within a generation. She smiled at the sky, unaware of the hand that had guided her vision. The night ended. The aliens retreated silently to the shadows of space, their work complete. They had not invaded, yet humanity's fate had been rewritten. The world would never remember this night, not in history books, not in legends, but its consequences would ripple through every life, shaping the next century in ways that were subtle, profound, and beautiful. Weeks passed, yet the world remained oblivious to the invisible architects of change. The subtle rewrites of human destiny began manifesting in small but remarkable ways, like whispers of a future that no one could yet name. In Mumbai, a young engineer named Arjun discovered a pattern in the city's chaotic traffic systems. For months, he had been trying to design a smart network to ease congestion, but his ideas always failed. One morning, while sketching on a napkin at a cafe, the solution came to him effortlessly. His hands moved as if guided by a force beyond reason. Within days, a pilot project he launched reduced accidents and delays, a quiet revolution in urban planning that began without fanfare. Meanwhile, in the Amazon rainforest, conservationists noticed unusual growth in plant life. Species thought endangered were thriving. Rivers shifted slightly but for the better, creating new habitats for fish and birds. Scientists could not explain the phenomenon. It was as if the entire ecosystem had been nudged toward balance, carefully orchestrated to ensure resilience against climate change and human interference. The aliens had touched not just minds, but the planet itself, aligning natural forces to support humanity's survival. In Cairo, an archaeologist named Layla discovered a series of ancient manuscripts that seemed to illuminate lost knowledge of mathematics and astronomy. The texts appeared out of place, as if they had been guided into her path at the perfect moment. As she studied them, she found insights that could reshape modern science. The aliens did not provide answers. They planted clues, guiding human curiosity to awaken at the right time. Back in New York, Leo Martinez's algorithms began gaining attention online. Tech forums buzzed with speculation about the young prodigy, though no one could fully understand the depth of his discoveries. Leo himself felt increasingly as if he were only a vessel for ideas that originated elsewhere. He was unaware that the patterns he decoded that night were seeds of humanity's next technological leap, tools to solve problems humanity had yet to imagine. Across the Pacific, a small island community was struck by a sudden surge of resourcefulness. Fishermen invented new sustainable methods for catching fish. Farmers found that crops resisted disease naturally. Children learned faster, played more creatively, and solved problems adults thought impossible. The aliens' influence had touched even the most remote corners of the world, ensuring that no society would be left behind in this quiet evolution. In the halls of governments, unnoticed shifts began too. Politicians who previously pursued only personal gain found themselves making decisions with a broader perspective. Policies supporting renewable energy, education, and healthcare started to gain traction, not because of pressure or activism, but because the probabilities had subtly shifted, so that the right choices became more likely, and the wrong choices less so. Humanity's collective consciousness had been guided towards survival without knowing it. Even art and culture reflected change. Musicians composed pieces that inspired unity. Writers penned stories about hope, resilience, and the human spirit's capacity to adapt. Movies and performances carried subtle messages that nudged audiences toward empathy and understanding. Each act, each creation, contributed to a global shift toward collaboration, foresight, and wisdom. Meanwhile, high above, Iltha and its companions observed silently. They do not notice us, Iltha thought. Yet in every heart, we have sown the light of possibility. When the time comes, humanity will rise to meet its destiny, without knowing it was ever guided. And so, the world continued, seemingly unchanged. Yet in the smallest gestures, the most minor discoveries, and the fleeting inspirations, the aliens' work unfolded. Humanity's fate, rewritten in silence, was beginning to reveal itself. By the time the first human breakthroughs began to reshape society on a grand scale, no one would know the night that changed everything. The night the aliens did not invade months passed, and humanity began to feel a quiet momentum building, though few could explain why. It was as if the world itself had grown slightly wiser, more connected, and subtly more resilient. The changes seeded by that silent night started intersecting, weaving together across cultures, continents, and disciplines. In Berlin, a climate scientist named Anya discovered a breakthrough in carbon capture technology. Her design, which had previously seemed impossible, suddenly fell into place. By the end of the year, her prototypes could remove far more carbon from the atmosphere than anyone thought achievable. In New Zealand, engineers working on renewable energy found a method to store solar power more efficiently. Across the oceans, these innovations began to complement each other, though the inventors never met. A quiet synchronicity was emerging, a global orchestration invisible to those living within it. Meanwhile, in Brazil, a young teacher named Mariana noticed her students forming ideas that bridged science, art, and philosophy in ways that amazed her. They built models of cities that could survive natural disasters, designed water systems that purify themselves, and created art that taught empathy. Each child, unknowingly touched by the alien influence, became part of the new wave of human ingenuity. In Tokyo, Kenji's clean energy device, previously a failed experiment, began to draw worldwide attention. His design inspired a network of similar innovations, linking engineers and scientists in ways that would have seemed improbable before. International collaboration grew effortlessly, almost as if the world's networks themselves were nudged to favor cooperation over competition. Even politics and society shifted. Leaders who had once been cynical found themselves making visionary decisions. Peace agreements, previously stalled for years, succeeded. Environmental policies gained traction. Communities united over common goals. The small nudges the aliens had planted had magnified over time, and humanity began to steer itself toward a more sustainable, compassionate future. Artists continued to play their role. In Paris, a sculptor named Camille created pieces that stirred emotions far beyond aesthetic beauty. In Cairo, storytellers wrote tales that bridged generations, fostering understanding between people of different cultures. In New York, musicians created melodies that brought strangers together in public spaces, inspiring hope and shared humanity. These cultural shifts, seemingly spontaneous, were subtle threads in the web of destiny the aliens had woven. Even the natural world responded. Ecosystems that had been unstable began to rebalance. Crops flourished in places where famine had once threatened. Animals migrated in healthier patterns, and the climate, while still volatile, showed signs of natural correction. The world itself seemed to hum with a quiet energy, a reflection of the unseen guidance that had touched human consciousness. In a hidden facility in the Arctic, Dr. Miriam Kahn monitored cosmic signals once again. A faint pulse from distant stars, reminiscent of the night she first noticed the alien presence, blinked on her instruments. She felt a strange sense of urgency and clarity. Though she could not articulate it, she understood that humanity's next steps would be monumental. Her work would help unlock new energy sources and technologies, giving humanity tools to survive and thrive in ways previously unimaginable. Above the Earth, Iltha observed silently, satisfied. The mission was succeeding. Humanity did not need conquest, fear, or domination. They required guidance, subtle enough to let them believe the victories were their own. And the longer the humans walked this guided path, the stronger and more capable they would become. The world moved forward, unaware of the invisible hand shaping it. Every invention, every breakthrough, every act of courage or creativity was now part of a destiny rewritten quietly in the night. Humanity was changing, not because they had been forced to, but because the universe had nudged them gently toward their better selves. And so, life went on, filled with small miracles, unnoticed wonders, and the quiet shaping of a future no one yet imagined, but one that would define the centuries to come. By the following year, the world began to feel the first tangible effects of the night the aliens had silently rewritten reality. People noticed subtle shifts in how life unfolded. Challenges that once seemed insurmountable were met with solutions that emerged naturally, almost as if the planet itself was guiding humanity toward answers. In Silicon Valley, Leo Martinez's algorithms had evolved into software capable of predicting patterns in climate, economy, and human behavior. Businesses and governments used his designs to make decisions that were more sustainable and equitable. People marveled at the results, attributing them to human ingenuity alone, unaware that the original inspiration had come from patterns implanted in Leo's mind by the silent visitors. Across Africa, a network of scientists and engineers, many working independently, began sharing ideas and inventions that harmonized perfectly. Clean water systems, new crop rotation methods, and renewable energy grids spread faster than anyone thought possible. Entire communities flourished. It was as if the world's innovation centers had been connected by invisible threads, each discovery amplifying the next. In Europe, artists and educators noticed an unprecedented cultural renaissance. Music, literature, and visual arts began to explore themes of unity, resilience, and the fragility of life. Children's schools incorporated creative thinking and problem-solving into everyday learning, fostering minds capable of seeing solutions before obstacles even appeared. The shift was subtle, yet profound. Humanity was learning to think differently, guided by patterns it could not see. Meanwhile, governments and organizations experienced unexpected cooperation. Peace negotiations succeeded where they had failed for decades. Climate treaties gained traction. Global efforts to reduce inequality began making real, measurable progress. No one understood why decisions were aligning with humanity's survival and progress, but the results were undeniable. In remote corners of the Earth, small yet remarkable miracles continued. In Alaska, a biologist discovered a rare plant thriving in a climate where it should have perished. In the Australian outback, indigenous communities found traditional knowledge blending with new technologies, enabling sustainable management of land and resources. Everywhere, humanity's potential was unfolding with uncanny precision. Even human relationships were affected. Communities were more cooperative, individuals more empathetic. Acts of kindness became more common, and people instinctively sought solutions that benefited the greater good. It was as though an invisible hand had shifted probabilities to favor human survival, growth, and understanding. Dr. Miriam Kahn, observing the cosmos, noticed patterns emerging in stellar activity that hinted at new energy sources and interstellar possibilities. She wrote papers and shared findings that inspired scientists worldwide, but none guessed how closely connected these discoveries were to the subtle guidance that had begun months earlier. High above, Iltha and the other beings observed silently, communicating through thought. The seed has taken root, Iltha projected. Humanity is beginning to walk its rewritten path. It is subtle, yet irreversible. By the end of this century, they will not remember the night that changed everything, but they will feel its effects in every aspect of life. In homes, schools, and laboratories around the globe, Humans continued to live their lives, unaware of the quiet orchestration unfolding. And yet, each discovery, each act of creativity, each solution to a problem that once seemed impossible, was part of the invisible design, nudging humanity toward a future brighter than it could have imagined. The night the aliens did not invade had become a turning point. No history books would mark it. No leaders would claim victory. Yet in every breakthrough, every small miracle, and every human connection, their influence pulsed silently, shaping the fate of an entire species. As years passed, the subtle rewrites of human destiny began to ripple outward, creating effects that no one could trace back to the night the aliens had silently intervened. Humanity was beginning to transform, not through force or war, but through knowledge, empathy, and innovation. In the Americas, a coalition of scientists developed technologies that could reverse environmental damage. Forests regenerated faster, oceans cleaned themselves in small, measurable ways, and species on the brink of extinction began to recover. These solutions appeared spontaneous, yet they were the result of countless individuals thinking in new ways, influenced by patterns subtly introduced by the aliens months earlier. In Asia, cities became hubs of collaboration rather than competition. Urban planners, engineers, and citizens intuitively coordinated, designing public spaces that promoted well-being, efficiency, and sustainability. People worked together naturally, no government decree needed. The aliens had gently shifted social probabilities, making cooperation more likely than conflict. In Europe, scientific discoveries accelerated at unprecedented rates. Physicists uncovered new principles of energy and matter, engineers designed machines that defied conventional limitations, and doctors found cures for diseases that had plagued humanity for centuries. Universities and research centers shared breakthroughs openly, driven not by competition, but by a collective impulse to improve life. Meanwhile, in Africa, innovations in agriculture and medicine transformed rural communities. Crops thrived even in previously infertile land, and access to healthcare expanded rapidly. Villages became models of sustainability and resilience. Children born during this time grew up in environments that encouraged creativity, empathy, and critical thinking, forming a generation capable of facing global challenges with unprecedented skill. Culture, too, evolved. Musicians, writers, filmmakers, and artists continued to inspire global audiences. Their work carried messages of hope, unity, and understanding. Performances and exhibitions subtly taught cooperation, empathy, and creative problem-solving. Humanity began to value collaboration over division, understanding over ignorance, and action over inaction. In the scientific world, Dr. Miriam Kahn made a discovery that seemed impossible, a method to harness cosmic energy safely and efficiently. Her research sparked a wave of innovations that would transform energy production for the entire planet. Across the globe, engineers and scientists built on her work, creating energy systems that could sustain humanity indefinitely. All of this, unbeknownst to her or anyone else, had been subtly influenced by the alien guidance implanted long ago. High above, Iltha observed, noting with satisfaction how the changes had amplified. They move faster than predicted, Iltha thought. Their capacity for adaptation, creativity, and empathy now exceeds even the most optimistic calculations. The night that changed everything was invisible to them, but its effects will echo for centuries. Even human relationships were evolving. Empathy, understanding, and cooperation became more common. Communities faced challenges together, solving problems with shared knowledge and mutual respect. Conflicts still arose, but they were smaller and resolved faster, as if the planet itself had adjusted human behavior to favor solutions over destruction. And so, humanity advanced, not through domination, fear, or warfare, but through the quiet awakening of potential. The aliens had not invaded. They had not imposed themselves on humanity. Instead, they had rewritten the probabilities of thought, creativity, and understanding, gently guiding the human race toward a destiny that was both extraordinary and unprecedented. By now, the changes were no longer subtle. They were becoming the foundation of a new world, one where science, art, culture, and compassion worked in harmony. The invisible hand that had nudged humanity had begun to shape a civilization that could endure the greatest challenges, explore the stars, and unlock the full potential of the human mind. Decades passed, and humanity began to feel the fruits of the subtle rewrites without ever knowing why. The world was not perfect, but it was evolving faster than anyone had predicted. Solutions to problems that had seemed impossible for centuries now emerged naturally, as if the planet itself had decided to guide its inhabitants. In North America, cities harnessed renewable energy to power entire regions. Entire industries pivoted to sustainability without crisis, and urban planning transformed landscapes to support both people and nature. Leaders no longer needed to convince the public of the benefits. The solutions simply seemed inevitable, and communities adopted them enthusiastically. Across Europe, medical science advanced at a pace unmatched in history. Diseases that had plagued humanity for generations were cured, and preventative care became standard worldwide. People lived longer, healthier lives, and global cooperation in healthcare became a cultural norm. Hospitals shared research openly, inspired by a growing understanding that the survival of one depended on the survival of all. In Asia, technology reshaped human potential. Education systems focused on creativity, critical thinking, and empathy. Children learned not just to memorize facts, but to solve problems in ways their ancestors could not have imagined. Universities and research institutions became collaborative networks spanning continents. The innovations of one region seamlessly amplified the work of another, creating a global intelligence that exceeded the sum of its parts. Meanwhile, in South America and Africa, agriculture and environmental management reached new heights. Deforestation slowed, ecosystems recovered, and communities thrived. Water systems purified themselves through low-tech innovations, crops resisted disease, and knowledge sharing between villages became standard. Humanity had begun to live in harmony with the planet in ways that had once been unthinkable. Cultural shifts were just as profound. Artists, writers, and performers inspired unity and understanding. Music carried messages of resilience, literature explored empathy and cooperation, and films showcased solutions to global challenges. Humanity's collective consciousness had evolved. People began to act with a sense of responsibility not just for themselves, but for the entire world. Even the most skeptical minds noticed changes. Economists marveled at patterns of cooperation in global markets. Politicians, initially driven by ambition, found themselves making ethical decisions more frequently. Communities rallied around shared challenges. Humanity, seemingly by its own efforts, had become more conscious, more capable, and more united. Yet, through it all, no one knew why. No history book recorded the night the aliens had silently intervened. No leader could take credit. The changes simply appeared as if the universe had shifted on its own, nudging humanity toward survival and progress. Iltha observed quietly from afar. They sense only the results, the alien thought. They do not see the guidance, yet they flourish because of it. The night that changed everything remains invisible, but its effects will resonate across centuries. Humanity will now be capable of reaching the stars, solving its crises, and surviving what once seemed impossible. And so, the world advanced. Innovations, empathy, and cooperation continued to expand, all flowing from a single night of invisible intervention. Humanity was becoming what it had always been capable of: resilient, inventive, and united. The aliens had not invaded, but they had rewritten the very probabilities that shaped human destiny. The night had ended, but its echoes were now permanent. Humanity's fate, subtly and irrevocably altered, was unfolding. One breakthrough, one act of creativity, one moment of empathy at a time. By the dawn of the next century, humanity had become unrecognizable from the one that had slept under the stars on that fateful night. The world had not exploded into chaos, nor had it been conquered. Instead, it had quietly blossomed into a civilization capable of facing challenges that would have seemed insurmountable decades before. In cities and villages across the globe, people lived with a deeper sense of purpose. Science and art intertwined seamlessly, guiding societies toward sustainability, innovation, and empathy. Energy crises were solved, ecosystems were thriving, and humans had learned to work not just for themselves, but for the greater good. Technology advanced, but it served life, not the other way around. Humanity had become self-aware in ways that transcended individual consciousness. It was a collective intelligence guided by subtle insight, creativity, and care. Children born during this era grew up in a world that encouraged curiosity, critical thinking, and empathy. They asked questions that adults had never considered, invented solutions that previously would have been impossible, and created art that inspired generations. It was a golden age of potential, not through force, but through understanding. In the vast libraries of knowledge that spanned continents, humans began to discover hints of patterns in their progress, coincidences too precise to be random, inspirations too profound to be merely human. Yet no one could pinpoint the source. Humanity had no idea that the night it had slept peacefully under the stars, unseen hands had nudged reality itself, quietly rewriting the probabilities of thought, action, and invention. High above, in the silent reaches of space, Ilthor observed one last time. The work is complete, the alien thought. They do not know us. They do not know the night that changed everything. And yet they thrive. We did not invade. We did not demand. We merely guided, ever so gently, the hand of fate. The aliens' fleet retreated beyond the reach of human vision, leaving Earth untouched in appearance, yet forever altered in essence. Humanity's journey was now its own, empowered by invisible guidance that had transformed its destiny. Every act of creativity, every scientific breakthrough, every compassionate decision was a thread in the tapestry that the aliens had subtly rewoven. And on Earth, people continued to live, unaware that their fate had been rewritten. They explored, they loved, they created, they learned, shaping the world with ingenuity and care. The night the aliens did not invade became a legend of nothing, remembered by no one. Yet its influence echoed endlessly, guiding the human race toward possibilities no one could have imagined. In the end, the greatest invasion never happened, not of cities or armies, but of destiny itself. And humanity, unknowing yet unstoppable, stepped into a future it had been quietly prepared to inherit.